All right, this time we'll welcome to the podium Chris Petersen, head coach of the 4th-ranked Washington Huskies, and Coach Nick Saban of the number 1-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. As we open, gentlemen, Coach Petersen, for your opening statement, I'll ask you, obviously this is your first trip to the Peach Bowl. What will you remember most about this week, this experience, and what do you think was the most special about it for you and your team this week?
Well, probably a lot of that has to do with how the game goes. I mean, the week's been great. I mean, Gary and his staff do an unbelievable job, and I think our kids have really enjoyed it. But I think everybody here is to, play well and try to win a game. And at the end of the day, that's the things you remember the most. But the week itself and the things that we've got to experience and see and talk to has been great.
All right, thanks, Coach. Coach Saban, I know this is your third run through the playoffs. What stands out in your mind about this bowl week experience and how it compares to others that you've had?
I think that the hospitality that our team and our football families received here has been phenomenal in terms of everybody being accommodating, whether it's the Peach Bowl folks, Chick-fil-A folks, or the city of Atlanta. And I think everybody in our organization certainly appreciates that. But I think it goes with Coach Petersen, what Coach Petersen said in terms of the thing that you're going to remember most about these games, any bowl game actually, but most especially a playoff game, is what happened in the game. How did we play in the game? And I think that's what people need to zero in on and try to focus on, and that's what's going to be remembered most.
All right, thanks for that. All right, we'll go ahead and open it up for Q&A. Please raise your hand. We'll get you a microphone. I would remind everybody to please silence your cell phones. When we get the microphone, give us your name and affiliation and to whom you're addressing the question. And we'll start right back here.
Good morning, Coach Petersen and Coach Saban. AP Stedham, BamaMag.com. Coach Petersen, some years ago, members of your Boise State staff visited Tuscaloosa. How has that impacted your program? And Coach Saban, what did you learn from Boise State when they came down for the visit?
I didn't really hear his question.
AP, can you repeat that, please?
Some years ago, members of your staff at Boise State visited Tuscaloosa.
Oh, yeah.
And I just wanted to know how that impacted your program going forward.
Yeah.
And then, Coach Saban, what did you learn maybe from Boise State that helped you?
I wasn't on that trip. I think it was some of our defensive guys that went down there and I think watched them practice a little bit. And it's always those things that you're trying to get one or two things. Learn from somebody that's performing at a high level, and if you can take a couple things out of there to incorporate into how you do practice or your schemes. And I know our guys came away really impressed, and Coach Saban and his staff treated them awesome. And, they thought it was time very well spent.
When we have people that come and visit us, we try to turn the tables on them a little bit and see what we can learn from them. And there were some similarities in things that we did defensively, and I think we learned a lot about what we could do, and hopefully, that this profession is unique in the fact that we all compete against each other, but the only way you really learn is to talk to other people in the profession. I haven't really ever invented anything in this game. Always just learned from really good people that had success and were well organized and had successful schemes, and the flexibility of being able to learn from others and change what you do relative to how the game changes is very, very important. So when we have people like Boise State staff, who was very, very successful, come in and visit, it's very, very helpful to us.
Okay, we're going to go over here on the left wall over here, please.
Don Hawes, WVTM at Birmingham, for both coaches, starting with Coach Saban. Starting in spring practice through preseason practice through the season, you both are searching for the identity of your football team. What would you say is the identity of the team that you bring into this college football playoff?
Well, I can only speak for our team, and I have an impression of our opponent, which is a very positive, high standard in terms of how they played. But I think the thing that our team has done is our players have played hard. They've shown a lot of competitive spirit relative to perseverance, overcoming adversity, continuing to be able to play the next play. And I think that's probably the thing that I would say has created an identity for this team, is their perseverance and ability to overcome adversity, which I think if you're going to be successful in this game, it's very important, because things are not always going to go the way you plan.
Yeah, I think similar. These guys have been great to coach. I've said this a few times. I don't think it was just about this season. They were awesome last year when we didn't have a very good record, and they worked extremely hard. When things weren't going well, they never really backed off. They practiced hard. They were great in meetings, and that continued into spring football. And they've been really businesslike since last year, and they've been awesome to coach and to be around.
Next question.
Taryn Walk with the Tuscaloosa News, over here. Coach Petersen, since you're so far from home, is this kind of like a road game, or does it still feel like a neutral site? And Coach Saban, it's kind of vice versa for you, since the last game was here also. What's the atmosphere like when the team takes the Georgia Dome more than once a year?
Yeah, I mean, there's we're quite a ways away from Seattle for sure, and I'm sure tomorrow there's going to be probably a lot more red than purple in that stadium, and it is what it is. It's not quite a home game for anybody, but it's probably more of an away game for us. It's going to be loud because it's inside, and that'll make it difficult to call some things, but it's not like we haven't played on the road in front of loud crowds and those type of things, and we're way more worried about Alabama, the team, than the crowd. So, yeah.
Well, I think that this is not a home game for us by any stretch of the imagination. I think when you play in your home stadium and you have your home crowd and the home spirit, especially in our conference, I think that's something that is significant for your team. We played in a number of these neutral site games, I would call them, whether it's a playoff game, a bowl game, or one of these kickoff classic type things, which I think is helpful to our players in terms of playing someplace that's not really a home game for them. The fact that we played here before this season, I don't think it's going to have any impact on what happens in this particular game. It's going to come down to how we play in the game and who plays the best and who goes out there and executes the fundamental things that they need to do to have success.
All right, over here on the left side, Jeff.
Jeff Spiegel, WBMA Birmingham. This is a question for both coaches. When you got a chance to run your own program, what particular coach did you borrow ideas from? And maybe what was the most important thing you learned from that particular coach?
Coach Pete?
Yeah, for me, it's not any one. It's everybody that I've been put in my path, and I always say this. I think so many of the assistants that I had worked with over the years influenced me as much as the head coaches. But I will say this: I've been very blessed to have some tremendous people. There's no question. I would be not sitting here today if it wasn't for all the people that I've been able to work with throughout my career. I've seen some tremendous people. And I really mean that. Like Coach Saban was saying, I mean, I haven't come up with an original idea, I think, ever in my entire life. And so everything is just, I saw somebody do it, it made sense to me. Kind of felt like it was the right thing to incorporate into, your program. And I think it starts way back when you're assistant coach in a position. And you just keep learning and growing. And I think that's what, probably a lot of the successful coaches do, is they never stop paying attention to what's going on right in front of them and what works, and continue to evolve.
Well, I feel like I've been very blessed to have some great mentors through the years, starting with Don James, who was my college coach, who really inspired me to want to be a coach, which is not something that I really had in mind. But the way he ran the program, the way he impacted people, the way he influenced students, the importance of education, and how he developed players, the recruiting system, all these things are things that impact what we do even still today. George Perlis at Michigan State was the first coach that gave me a responsibility as being a coordinator. I learned a lot from that experience. Bill Belichick was probably the most organized coach that I've ever been involved with, and just had some tremendous mentors through the years. But I think one thing that you learn from everybody that you're associated with is, here's some good things that I'd really like to try to implement and do, but here's also some things that I don't think are really good things that I would make a part of what I do. So you sort of develop a philosophy along the way by sort of evaluating the good, the bad, and the ugly, I guess, and trying to formulate something that works for you and your personality and what you'd like to create as a standard for how you'd like to run your program in all the areas.
All right, we're going to go here on the right side aisle.
Adam Kilgore with the Washington Post for Nick. Given the attention and the responsibility that comes with playing quarterback at Alabama, was it at all difficult for you to put Jalen in that spot back in the summertime? And what about him convinced you that he'd be able to handle that?
Well, I think that you don't make an evaluation based on difficulty. You make an evaluation based on who you feel gives your team the best opportunity to be successful relative to their skill set. We had to change a few things philosophically in terms of how we went about our offense this year because of what Jalen could do and what his experience level was. And I think he responded well and made a lot of plays throughout the season and made a significant amount of progress in terms of how he improved. I don't think you ignore the fact that you have a young quarterback when you play with a freshman, and you try to do things that he can do and have success doing and grow and develop. And I think our coaching staff, Lane, and our entire offensive staff did a really good job of that with him this year.
All right, next question. Right here on the left side aisle.
Hi guys, Rick Carley, Fox 6 in Birmingham. As we look at the big picture in college football, could you comment on the thought by many that it might be good for college football to have a commissioner? And perhaps if you have a couple names out there who might make for a good commissioner. If you could both comment on that.
Yes, and I think Coach Saban would be a great one.
I don't know about that. I do think that there are a significant number of people out there that have been successful coaches and have been on the administrative side of it, whether it's a Barry Alvarez or somebody like that, that if we had a commissioner for football, and I know the Football Coaches Association tries to organize and represent us and our game in terms of some of the issues that we all face. We all face them. But I think if we had some people, whether it's a committee of people or a commissioner, who could sort of drive the wheel a little bit in terms of what some of the problems facing our game are in the future, whether it's recruiting calendar, whether it's number of guys that go out for the draft, whether it's the number of people that transfer. I think there's a lot of things that would be very, very helpful if we had some people in a leadership position that had some experience relative to what our issues are as coaches.
All right, next question, please. Raise your hand. We'll get you a microphone. Let's go right up here in the front row right here, please.
Tyson Winter with the Pac-12 Network. Coach Saban, obviously you face a Pac-12 opponent tomorrow and have two former Pac-12 head coaches on your staff. In what regard do you hold the Pac-12 as a football conference?
I think it's an outstanding conference, and I think there's a lot of outstanding teams in the conference, and Washington obviously proved that they were the best team in that conference with their total body of work in terms of what they were able to accomplish this season. But I think it's as fine a conference as any conference in the country, as all conferences, whether it's our conference or their conference. You know, some years you have maybe a few more good teams than in other years, but I think all in all it's one of the best Power 5 conferences out there.
All right, next question. All right, let's go here on the left.
Dylan Hernandez here, the LA Times. This question's for Nick. Your offensive coordinator's made some headlines here in the last 24, 48 hours. Did you have any thoughts on Lane Kiffin basically saying that he hasn't had a ton of fun at Alabama, that the last 3 years have kind of dragged on? Do you think it'll be a distraction at all for your team? And also, have you addressed any of these comments with Lane?
No, I think Lane has done a really, really good job for us, and you know, I think the players respect him. I think he's put them in positions to have success, and I think they appreciate that. I know I appreciate that. You know, I think that when someone has been a head coach before, it's very difficult to go back and be an assistant. I was a head coach once at the University of Toledo for 1 year, and Bill Belichick, who's arguably one of the best coaches there are in our profession, hired me as a defensive coordinator of the Cleveland Browns. And after running your own sort of program for 1 year and then having to go back and do it the way somebody else wants to do it, it's very difficult. I mean, it's difficult. And I have no problem with the way Lane has managed it. And you know what he's tried to do and the contribution that he's made, and I'm happy for him that he got an opportunity to be a head coach again, and we'll help him every way that we can.
Here, number 3.
Guys, Dave Mahler with KJR Radio in Seattle, and I just got in last night, but it's obvious that there's a lot of adrenaline in this town from both fan bases, and I'm wondering what's tonight going to be like for you guys? Do you toss and turn? Do you pace around the hotel room? Can you get some sleep tonight? What's a night before a big game like this like for both you guys?
Coach Pete?
Yeah, I mean, we try to make it the same as all the games that got us here. You know, the process is the same for the players. It's a normal Friday. We'll go do our walkthrough and have our meeting tonight, and you know, you just try to keep it as normal as you can, and you know, keep it in perspective for them.
Well, and I think that, you know, there are two things. There's, you know, internal factors that we deal with on our teams, which is what we want to stay focused on in terms of helping them play to a standard and play the way that you'd like for them to play. And that's all about preparation, and guys that have good preparation usually can go play fast and play with confidence, which is what we're hopeful that our team will be able to do relative to what we've done to this point. And you really don't want them to be affected by the external factors of what's happening outside, so they can stay focused on the things that they need to do on the field.
All right, let's right here in the middle on the right side aisle, please.
Alan Cole, Sports Illustrated Kids. Coach Petersen, this season, you talked about the adversity a little bit earlier, a couple of injuries, big injuries in your defense. Can you talk about the way your team kind of just responded from the Azim Victor injury and the Joe Mathis one?
You know, I think everybody tries to play as many guys as you can for a couple different reasons. One, because you know you're going to have injuries. You got to develop depth. You know, you have a really good player, and it's hard to take them off the field when you have a maybe not as experienced player. But it's really important that you get those guys significant reps, so when something happens, and also I think it's just for the morale of the team. You know, it's hard to go to practice all the time and not get into games, and so the more guys that we can play, you know, I think there's a lot of benefits, and we've tried to do that. And you know, when Azim went down, you know, some of those linebackers had already played some pretty significant snaps, and they get more significant snaps when you get an injury, and that's just part of the game. I mean, guys are going to get dinged, and the next guy's got to be ready to roll.
All right, next question, please. Anything in the back?
We wore them out. They're questioned out. I didn't think this would happen.
I think media day yesterday may have something a little bit to do with it, Coach. All right, we got to have a few more. Where are we going next, guys? All right, let's go back here in the 3/4 of the way back on the left, please.
Kaylee Hartung from ESPN, a question for both coaches. As you both take pride in helping develop the identities of your players as men off the field, could you each give an example of a conversation you had with a player or a group of players this season that you found thought-provoking or particularly impactful on them?
Coach Saban?
Well, I think that the question that you ask is something that probably happens more on a daily basis than it does once or twice in a season, because I think that as we coach and try to develop, players to have a better chance to be successful off the field as people, that's very similar to being a parent. And every opportunity that you have that it can be a teaching moment for your players is something that I look forward to trying to help them gain a better understanding of how they can respond and react to something that would be beneficial to them. And I think it's all around them. I think our visit to the Martin Luther King Church, very thought-provoking for a lot of our players and understanding what a lot of people did relative to civil rights. So this is like happening every day. So to ask a specific question or give a specific example of, we have speakers that are always trying to impact players, whether it's how they brand themselves, the choices and decisions that they make, versus the goals that they have. These are all things that we're constantly trying to teach and develop the right sort of character, attitude that is going to help players make the kind of choices and decisions that they can take advantage of their gifts, personally, academically, and athletically.
Yeah, I think that's one of the fun part of our jobs. And I talk to our guys all the time about all these things, whether it's Brexit, Black Lives Matter, the pipeline going through South Carolina, as many things as we can think about, the election. I mean, these are things that some of our guys are remotely aware of, some of them are really aware of it. And the more that we can have them talking about these like important things that are happening outside the bubble of football, I think is awesome. I think that's what's, college and is all about, not just about book learning, but about real life learning. And I think the more that we challenge our guys to think about these things and talk about them, I think can be game changing for these guys.
All right, time for 2 or 3 more. Where are we going to go next? All right, let's go all the way back here in the back left on the aisle, please.
Kale Remaker, KIRO, Seattle. Both of you have a common opponent in USC. For those of us who don't make a living breaking down opponents' film, is there any advantage in the fact that you both have a common opponent? Coach Pete, I'll start with you.
Yeah, it's hard to know. You play. I think everybody evolves as the season goes on, and we played. A lot of respect for USC in terms of how they continually got better as the season went on, and when they came up, we played a really good team that came into our place and played a better game than us. And I know the one thing was it was a really good team, and our guys, we didn't play well enough, and so I think there's some things that we learned about that. It's hard to know, common opponent in terms of that. Coach Saban could more.
Well, I think that, we both played USC. I'm not sure we both played a common opponent because their team evolved through the course of the year. New coach, new quarterback as the year went on. I think their team, after the first 3 or 4 games, really sort of started to gel and made significant improvement. And was a completely different team than we played in the beginning of the season. So we played the same team, but I'm not sure we played a common opponent.
All right, next question, please. All right, back over here in fourth row there on the left. Jeff?
Coach Petersen, can you talk about your OKG philosophy and how impactful that's been in the turnaround?
Well, you know, that term OKG we've used for a long time, just meaning, you know, the kids we want to recruit are the kids that are our kind of guys, and really it just has to do with fit. We feel real strongly about the guy that we're looking for, that we think fits our culture, you know, our style of football. And, you know, it's something that's just language we've used with our coaches for a long time. And I think maybe that's one of the things that our coaches have done well, is kind of stick to the script. And I think there's a lot of good players out there. And some of those guys don't fit what we're all about. And it's, I think, sometimes hard to be disciplined in the recruiting process of what you need, what you're looking for. And I think that's one of the things that I really appreciate about the guys on our staff is, you know, they're all about a certain type of guy, and they stay pretty disciplined to that process. And you know, but we're always trying to get better at that recruiting process. And it's hard. It's easy to throw these words out. You can look at tape, and that's just kind of gets you started. There's a lot of other work that has to go into it to figure out. And these kids are changing, and they're young, and they're evolving. And when you start to recruit them, some of these guys are really young in high school. By the time you get them, they're a different guy. And by the time they leave you, they're a completely different guy. And so it's a lot more complicated than it seems, obviously.
All right, right here in the middle. Oh.
Yes, this question is for both coaches, Dwayne Rankin, Montgomery Advertiser. What's the final message you want to give your team going into this game?
Coach Saban?
Well, I think that the message is you want the team to play best. You know, can we play our best as a team? Can we play to our standard? What kind of mindset do we need to have to do that? We've had good preparation. We had lots of practice, more than we have for most teams. And, you know, you just want your team to go out there and play best. So that'll, and we want to focus on the things that they need to do to be able to do that against a very good opponent.
I think at this point there's not a ton of talking. You know, we've talked to these guys for a long time, and, you know, now it's just, you know, they know the plan and got to go play.
All right, left side, row 2 in the aisle, please.
Chris Brees, CBS 42 in Birmingham, Coach Petersen. Seattle's a city where the Seahawks have really made a name for themselves. Are your players aware that they're the team that everyone watches, and could a game like this and a season like this kind of start to help to change the perception that, you know, Washington can be like the Seahawks?
You know, Seattle's, one thing I really appreciated is I do think it's a pretty passionate football place, and they just like good football. And so the Seahawks been playing good football for quite a long time, and so a lot of us are big Seahawk fans. And, you know, if we can continue to play good football, you know, there'll be more and more Washington fans. But I think in general, one of the attractions, I think, for kids coming to Seattle is they really like football there. I know it's certainly the same in Tuscaloosa, you know, and I think coaches and players really appreciate when people like football or are passionate about what you do.
All right, Marty, you're up.
I'm Marty Smith, ESPN. This was sort of asked a moment ago, but I'll phrase it this way. You both have a chance to do something really special here, obviously. So how and how much have you stressed the finality of a win-or-go-home game to your teams?
Coach Saban?
We don't approach the game that way. We try to approach the game in a very positive. You created an opportunity for yourself. Now's the time to be your best as a player and try to look at the things from a process standpoint that's going to help you be successful in the game, you know, rather than focusing on a positive or negative result.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned it one time. I mean, they get that. They understand it's a playoff. We didn't have to tell them that. So, same thing. It's just try to prepare the best you can and go play the best you can. Let's see what happens.
Right here in row 2.
Question for Coach Saban. The media likes to make a big deal out of Coach Pete's trick plays. How much time have you spent looking at those, and anything interesting we might see you use in the future?
Yeah, a lot of time, and one of the comments that I wanted to make when he got asked about his mentors is, where'd you learn all this stuff? It couldn't have been from one guy.
Well, and you guys have ruined half our game plan talking about trick plays so much that now that's what so those are out.
Yeah, no, but I think the thing that people sort of misinterpret about this is they're well conceived. They fit their offense. They utilize the players in their offense that are capable of making these kind of plays, and they do a really good job of executing those plays. And I think that's why they've been very effective for them through the years. And I think rather than, the way I look at it is, rather than thinking that they're trick plays, they're little unusual plays that create a tremendous amount of attention to detail and discipline for defensive players.
All right, we're going to take one more question. Final question. Who's got it? Anybody? Okay, all right, we'll end it there. Coach, give us 1 second. We're going to do a quick photo op with the head coaches, Gary and Percy. If you guys come up, please.